YouTube! So lately, I felt like my Japanese studies have been getting pretty dull and repetitive, especially studying for something as big as the N2 because of all the stuffy grammar and business vocabulary and stuff like that. Recently, I had a week pass where I just couldn't muster the motivation to study or anything at all. And it made me wonder if it was time to start trying to change up how I study and try to regain some of my motivation back. I started studying Japanese back in 2005, before the iPhone even existed.
There were no apps, books were hard to find and expensive, importing things from Japan was impossible, and social media barely existed.
Recently though, I started teaching friends Japanese through Discord, and I quickly realized watching them how outdated I was and how many new tools and resources are available for beginners starting to study Japanese. So I set out to learn more about what tools exist now, both in hopes of helping my friends find tools that work for them, and also to find some for myself to help motivate me to study more again, and, hopefully pass that in too. First up, I want to share my absolute favorite grammar resource I have ever found. I do still really like the Try series of books that I've recommended in past videos, but for grammar specifically, I wanted something a little more engaging and memorable to help go along with the Try series, just because grammar is one of my weakest parts in Japanese, I think. I finally came across the Nihongo no Mori channel on YouTube, and I absolutely love their videos. They have a variety of videos across their YouTube and their website covering all sorts of Japanese topics, but I particularly like the grammar videos. They're entirely in Japanese, so they're good for beginners regardless of what your native language is. Because they're entirely in Japanese too, they use very simple pictures and skits and sentences and stuff like that to demonstrate the grammar so that it's very easy to understand. Before, when I would look up example sentences, they would be so long and so complicated, I wouldn't want to spend the time to write them down. Nihongo no Moris, however, are very easy to understand and therefore also easy to remember. They also often have little skits to show funny situations to help you remember what each grammar point is. All of the teachers are super charismatic and fun, so it doesn't feel like a slog to study this way. While the videos are great by themselves, how I study to make them more effective involves the GoodNotes app on my iPad. I've started trying to use my iPad and iPhone more for studying, since now that I have a kid, I need to take advantage of studying on the go more often, and I need to be able to pick it up and put it down whenever he wants me to join in playing with him, and I don't want to have to store a ton of books or notebooks in my house anymore either. The GoodNotes app has been great for practicing writing kanji over and over without wasting a bunch of paper, and also to store my grammar notes. Recently though, they've added in two features that have been a massive help: the flashcards feature and the masking tape feature. I really like to use SRS flashcards when I study, so I don't feel like I'm wasting time by looking at words I've already mastered. With GoodNotes, it's very easy to make flashcards look any way that I want. I just write my notes like normal while I watch the Nihongo no Mori videos, and I do that because writing stuff out by hand, by itself, has been proven to help retain information in your long-term memory. If you're interested in more sources and information about that, I'll link some stuff in the description if you want to learn more. Once I have my notes written out, I simply pull up the flashcard deck in another window and copy and paste the notes that I took into the flashcards. Since they're already written out and organized in a way that's easy for me to grok and remember, I don't have to bother entirely reorganizing them just to fit into a flashcards program's specific layout, which saves a lot of time. Then I can just look at them in GoodNotes on either my phone or my tablet and practice. Another feature they've just added that's super helpful is the memory tape. For decades now, I've seen those red-green highlighter study kits in Japanese stores where you can highlight your books or your notes with one color, and then you use the colored sheet it comes with to block those out in practice. This feature in GoodNotes is basically that, but for your digital notes. To use it, on my standard notebook-style notes, I just pick the masking tape function, I choose a color that'll match my notes so it's still pretty, and then I just highlight over stuff I want to be able to quickly quiz myself on and tape over them. Then, when I tap on them, they'll reveal themselves and I can tap again to cover them back up. I mostly use this for the conjugations for each word that will make each grammar type happen. If I want to quiz myself on the overall meaning of a grammar point, I'll use the flashcards, and if I want to quiz myself on the specifics, like how to conjugate and form that grammar point, I'll use the memory tape. Combining GoodNotes with the Nihongo no Mori videos has given me a very entertaining and efficient and easy to use way to review all the grammar points that I need for the JLPT, while also making sure that I can still review how to conjugate them so that I can actually use them in day-to-day life. My study time on the days that I study grammar has also dropped down significantly from around an hour to like 20 to 30 minutes using the Nihongo no Mori videos because of how they cut their grammar up into easier to digest chunks. So as a mom, I greatly appreciate the time savings. I spend, conservatively, 3 to 4 hours a day playing video games after my son goes to bed. I'd long wanted to try to work some passive Japanese study time into that, but I was kind of intimidated by playing a game fully in Japanese. One day, I just decided to go ahead and go for it and see what happens. After trying it out for a few months with various different games, I think it's best to go at it with one of 2 intentions in mind, depending on how you're feeling that day and also what best suits that particular game or that particular genre. In my opinion, you should either aim to be able to quickly look at text in the game and comprehend something and react to it quickly, basically speed reading, or take your time and see how grammar works in context, look up words, and aiming for a deeper contextual understanding. I think for starting playing video games in Japanese, you probably want to stick to the first method at first so that it still feels like fun and exciting and not like proper sit-down studying Japanese. It's also really good practice for something I think not enough people work into their study methods, especially for those who want to go to Japan and use their Japanese in real life. I've seen many friends study Japanese and get really good before they move to Japan, and they study things like hiragana and basic greetings and everyday life stuff, but they don't practice using it at speed. So then they get really frustrated because they'll go to a restaurant and they'll feel pressured when they're looking at a menu to read it faster, to respond faster, to do everything faster. Whereas when they were at home studying, they had all the time in the world to sit down and look very carefully and really think about their response and really get everything right. So I think that learning to read quickly and get the gist of something is an incredibly important skill for everyone, even if you're just going to Japan as a tourist. I would definitely recommend for the first time you try this to actually pick a game that you're very familiar with, or at least a genre that you play a lot, so that you already know a lot of what's going on in English so that you can ease yourself into it better. For me, this is mostly Final Fantasy XIV, but it would also work well with things like Genshin Impact, Katamari Damacy, puzzle games, and stuff like that, where you can easily figure out how to play and where to click without getting too wrapped up in reading too many words. To use FF14 as an example, I have played this game for years, so I don't have to worry about having to learn all of the game systems from the ground up in Japanese. I set my game language at the login screen. Most games you'll either do it here on the start screen or it's buried somewhere in the options menu. And from my time playing in English, I already know which menu I need to pull up for which things, and then I just need to quickly look at the words and remember which one does which, like which one is sell this item on the market board, for example. I can also do raids that I've done plenty of times because I still know what attacks do what for the most part, and therefore I'm not bringing my party down with a language-imposed handicap. But I can see the Japanese attack names pop up and test myself to quickly understand things like, oh, that says kick. This must be axe kick. This way, I'm improving my ability to skim text and figure out the gist so that I can react to things faster when using Japanese in the real world without getting hung up on the details when I don't need to. And I don't have to spend a lot of time mentally translating things in my head either. For times when you want to take it slow and focus on comprehending as much as you can while enjoying a story, I strongly recommend RPGs, turn-based strategy games, and visual novels for taking your time. The text won't advance till you tell it to, which gives you plenty of time to focus on the sentence chunk being shown to you. Plus, you can compare how different characters speak and use things like their backstory and their appearance and start to gain an understanding of what vocal nuances imply what types of people. It's like, for example, I see a lot of people get tripped up on like feminine versus masculine Japanese, or the different verb endings that imply like toughness or rudeness, just things like that. So seeing different characters is a great way to start learning those nuances, just like how we learn via fairy tales when we're learning English when we're kids. While dialogue from video games may not always be the most applicable to everyday life, like I don't go around telling my coworkers about the evils of the Garlemald Empire, for example, I do think that games are a great way to study different styles of talking, and the story and context that you experience along with the words go a long way to making them easier to remember than if you just study them in a textbook. So I have tried a lot of different kanji study apps over the years, especially when I started studying for the JLPTs. By far, I think one of the easiest to use while still maintaining a really high level of study is MochiKanji, so I'm pleased to announce that they're the sponsor of this video. For starters, it's adorable. I know many people may not care about this kind of thing, but I find it easier to study when I have stationery that I like and apps that I like and stuff like that. It just puts me in a better mood. So seeing all the cute little attention to detail touches they put into this app is great. As a former UX designer, I also appreciate how easy it is to get started and how smooth they've made the onboarding process. To start, you just answer a couple questions about your Japanese level and it'll recommend a course to start with. There's the normal JLPT N5 through N2 courses, like the one I'm using for the N2, but I also love that they offer specialty courses for like IT, nursing, and other things for people looking to directly enter the job market. Each course has many topics within it, and then each topic is divided into smaller lessons. Each of them has about 8 to 10 words with flashcard, audio, English translation, and example sentences. You can even choose to skip a word if you already know it, saving you some time when you're studying. The main special feature of MochiKanji is called Golden Time, and it's a function to help remind you to review words that you've learned at the most optimal time for remembering them long term. While this feature is based on the same idea as other SRS apps, the Mochi team has made a unique algorithm, and I actually found the timing to be better than other SRS apps. MochiKanji also has many features to help keep you motivated while learning Japanese. So it organizes your learned vocabulary into 5 levels, with 1 being just learnt and 5 being long-term memory. And you can see what words are at what level when you look at your digital notebook. Sometimes it can be kind of hard to keep track of your progress while you're learning a language, so I do like that this kind of always shows you just how much vocab you've learned and how far you've come. In addition, there's other cute features like the Mochi Garden and the Mochi Events that not only make me smile when I see them, but you can also see your progress in smaller, more manageable chunks over time. So as for why I think the review sessions in MochiKanji are better, so when the countdown timer turns 0, MochiKanji sends you a notification that it's time to review, and the review quizzes test you on a variety of different things, including reading, writing, and listening, so that you can review words in many different use cases, and you can study them from Japanese to English and English to Japanese, and you get a lot of practice with each word that way. So most of the kanji apps that I've used in the past have one significant flaw. Whenever you're practicing actually writing the kanji, which I think is super important for memory retention, like I mentioned before, the detection on the app is awful. The dictionary app that I use for work has great detection, no matter how bad my finger handwriting may be that day, so it frustrates me to no end when I'm trying to study and I have to keep writing each kanji 6 times over when I know what it is, but the app keeps telling me that it's the wrong kanji. Or worse, they reset your writing progress on that kanji back to start because it thinks you wrote it in incorrectly. But with MochiKanji, I've tried doing it purposefully as wrong as I can. I'll go too fast, I'll write strokes out of order, I'll write one-handed while my son shakes my arm. You name it, it has read the kanji correctly every time, even on the more complicated N2 level kanji. I cannot tell you how many hours I wasted studying for the N3 because I was using kanji apps that made me keep rewriting the kanji if it thought even one thing was out of place. So it's incredibly refreshing to use MochiKanji and not have to deal with that while studying for the N2. Lastly, I really like the order that MochiKanji presents new vocab in during the lesson, as it's a good mix of often used words and then higher level words to help with understanding news articles. So you feel like you're getting a good mix of everyday life stuff as well as high-level stuff you need to pass the test. Literally 2 weeks after I started using the app, I had to interpret for Japanese guests at an anime convention. So I was really happy when I was studying a few days prior to the convention and I saw the word for a request, yobo, which turns out I needed to use during the convention to ask the guests if they needed anything before their panels begin. During that exact same lesson, there was also the word for environmental pollution, and seeing harder words like that makes me feel more prepared for taking on news articles, as well as just the harder, higher level reading passages found on the JLPT N2. There's even more content aimed towards beginners too. For example, there's the conversation practice tool, which I think is great for people who are about to go visit Japan or go live in Japan, and you're feeling anxious about getting through everyday situations like ordering food at a restaurant. It'll help guide you through how that conversation would go with voice acting throughout so you can hear what it will actually sound like at actual speed. Most of my friends who come to visit Japan feel anxious doing things like ordering food or buying things at stores and just other trivial everyday things without me being there all the time. So I think people would feel a lot more confident if they practice with this feature before going to Japan. Also, for beginners who haven't gotten to practice a lot of writing yet and you want to fit in more practice on the go than what's available in the lessons, or even for higher level learners who just want more practice writing some of the more difficult kanji, there's also the write feature. The kanji are organized from JLPT N5 to N2, and each one will call out the onyomi and the kunyomi, and then we'll give you plenty of chances to practice writing the characters. In addition, there's also a dictionary feature that lets you search with either kanji or kana, as well as romaji, so it's really usable by learners at all levels. Each entry includes enough info without being overwhelming or hard to look at, and it'll include the reading for the word, the verb type, and an example sentence. All in all, this is a great app that I'm going to continue to use to study as I go towards my end too. The SRS timing is great, there's no time limit on the questions, so it's easy for me to pick it up and put it down when I need to play with my son. It's very user-friendly, and with all of its kanji practice features and course types, I have a feeling that there's going to be new content for me to work through for a long time to come. They advertise that you can memorize over 1,000 kanji and vocab in 1 month with it, and with the amount of stuff available on the app, I think they might actually be right. If you want to use it too, I'll leave a link in the description below to download it. Otherwise, you can find it on Apple's App Store, on Google Play, or just by Googling MochiKanji and downloading it from their website. Thank you so much again to MochiKanji for sponsoring this video. Living in the States, I think the most common use of my Japanese knowledge outside of work is just helping people understand some aspect of Japanese culture or society that they've only seen from a YouTube short or from some newsreel that had it completely out of context, so they've totally misinterpreted it. For example, I had to spend my entire birthday lunch telling my dad about geisha, which I could do because I've not only been to Kyoto, but I've also seen the Netflix show The Makanai, which goes into a lot of detail about the daily lives of Maiko and some of the social issues surrounding things. Simply watching Japanese TV shows with English subtitles is time well spent, in my opinion, as it can give you not just general cultural knowledge, but also impart subtle social cues to you, like how coworkers interact, everyday politeness things that are unique to Japan, and stuff like that. When I started studying all those years ago, Netflix was a DVD-only service, and Crunchyroll or anything like that for anime didn't exist at all. So my only source of getting things was a small Japanese grocery store that had a little VHS rental section that things were about $10 a week. If I were to start studying again from the ground up, I would definitely take advantage of all the free, or at least cheaper, sources of Japanese media that exists on the internet now. YouTube has really taken off in Japan, so you can easily find YouTubers to watch for free for anything that you're interested in. I watch lots of cooking YouTube, commentary channels, and travel videos, for example. But while most of these do have subtitles, not everything on Japanese YouTube will have subtitles thrown in. And that's why I like to watch a lot of dramas and live action shows on Netflix. I use a VPN to get access to even more content from Japan, but even without one, the selection of dramas is growing on American Netflix. I really liked watching The Makanai and The Full-Time Wife Escapist. Not only do both of these shows have some cultural commentary from a Japanese perspective, they're also great for learning more casual conversational dialogue. I think that when you're learning things that are immediately useful to you and feel like you could instantly put them to use in your everyday life, you're a lot more motivated to study that way. To study with Netflix, plenty of times I just throw on a show with both Japanese audio and Japanese subtitles on. No English allowed. But rather than anything intense, I'll just watch and see what I can pick up on my own, or more importantly, what I can figure out from context. I think a lot of people underestimate how much better things stick with you when you figure them out yourself through context than when you just read them out of a textbook. The times I want to do more intentional, purposeful studying, I'll bring out good notes again on my iPad, and if I see a phrase that looks particularly useful to me, like one I want to start using in my day-to-day life, I'll write down the phrase as it appears in the subtitles and then keep watching. Later, when I'm done enjoying the show, I'll pull out that notebook again and look up the lines online, try to get a better understanding of their context if I need to, and make flashcards with them. Most importantly, don't let studying take away from your enjoyment of the show. Netflix should just be about having fun, even if you're studying. Similarly to everything I just said about Netflix, but for reading, there's now so many free manga reading apps you can download from the Japanese App Store to use for practice. I started using the study method more when I started my current job. I help translate manga and light novels from Japanese into English. When I started, though, I was immediately humbled by the amount of casual conversation type speech and just the amount of slang that I had no idea about. I thought back to several years ago when I picked up the Japanese translation of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World in a used bookstore. My friend said my Japanese had two eras, the pre-Scott Pilgrim era and the post-Scott Pilgrim era. Because reading that did so much to improve my casual speech and make me stop sounding too proper all the time. I figured it helped then, so why can't it help now? Not only do I get better at understanding casual language in manga for work, but I can also take some of those casual conversation nuances and put them to use when talking to my friends, so I stop sounding like a grammar robot all the time, thanks to all the JLPT study. Of course, to use a lot of these, you'll want access to the Japanese App Store or have a way to download Japanese apps if you're on an Android phone, as switching countries in the Google Play Store is far more difficult than on the iPhone, at least it was the last time I tried it. If you're not currently living in Japan, there are several guides online that can help you figure out how to set up your own Japanese App Store account. Some of my favorite apps for free manga are Manga Park, Manga Up, and just Amazon Kindle. Manga Park specializes a lot in shoujo, and you can get a lot of older titles too, like Vampire Knight and Fruits Basket. Those are series I liked reading as a teenager, so it's great now to be able to go back and read them in Japanese. Manga Up is Square Enix's manga app, and they have a lot of really popular series running now, like My Dress-Up Darling, Horimiya, The Apothecary Diaries, and more, so it has a great variety of currently running manga. Both of these apps do allow you to pay for chapters, but you can use them extensively for free with both the amount of free chapters that each title has and the in-app currency you gain just from opening the app every day. Amazon also offers a wide variety of manga and regular books. I just keep my American Amazon account on my phone and then my Japanese Amazon account on my iPad, so I don't have to keep signing in and out of each account. The downside, of course, is that you'll need to pay for each of the volumes you purchase, but the upside is that you can get all kinds of books, not just manga. Of course, there's plenty more apps and websites where you can legally read Japanese manga for free. These are just the ones I use the most often. If they don't suit your taste, feel free to go hunting for more. Just Google Mango yomu and see where you end up. As for how I go about actually studying manga, it's very similar to what I do for Netflix. First and foremost, my goal is to have fun and see what I can pick up through context. I often just read through chapters while I'm on the go, lying in bed before I go to sleep, with no intent to actively study. I just sit back and enjoy the read. Similarly to Netflix though, when I see a phrase that I really want to remember, I'll jot it down. There are plenty of words that come up that my normal dictionary can't handle, like some of the slang, the casual speech, and just kind of manga style talking. So there are a few websites I'd recommend to help make understanding those phrases a little bit easier. I actually use ChatGPT sometimes. I would never use it for a full translation, but it's actually pretty good at translating casual phrases into their English equivalents or giving you the idea of what a sound effect is. There's also sites like Weblio or DMM that I use while working a lot too. They're aimed at Japanese speakers learning English, but they have lots of different examples of casual Japanese phrases translated into English. Remember though, don't get too caught up trying to understand every single nuance or every single word or every single grammar point, because the goal here is to have fun. I always tell people that learning Japanese isn't hard, it just takes a lot of time. So if you're spending all this time on it, why not make that time the most enjoyable that you can? I hope that all of this advice and these resources can help you avoid wasting all the time that I've wasted over the years and help motivate you to continue on in your Japanese studies. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks again to MochiKanji for sponsoring the video, and I'll see you next time.